Hi guys, and welcome to Slight Insight. With all the hype around Skinwalker Ranch, I felt like creating a video to explain what's going on. Before we get into the subject, I do want to ask you to subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up as it helps out a lot. Let's get into Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch is a 500-acre property in the northeast of Utah in the United States. The ranch is famous for alleged UFO sightings and a lot of unexplainable paranormal activity. Lots of witnesses have told their stories, and since the 1930s, several books have been published. Skinwalker Ranch takes its name from ancient legends about witchcraft. Witches called skinwalkers who could possess people and animals supposedly lived there. We've done a lot of research on previous ranch owners, but the only 100% certain account of ownership starts with the Myers family in 1933. Skinwalker Ranch was owned by Kenneth and Edith Myers from 1933 to 1994, when they passed away and their brother Gareth Myers inherited the ranch. In the 60-plus years the Myers owned the ranch, there are no records of them witnessing any paranormal or UFO activity. In 1995, Gareth Myers sold the ranch to Terry and Gwen Sherman. Since the Shermans lived there, the local newspaper, the Deseret News, reported UFOs regularly visit their ranch, and they saw a huge spaceship the size of several football fields. Allegedly, there were tons of UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, and crop circles. In June 1996, the Deseret News wrote, "The ranch has been a hotbed for UFOs and bizarre paranormal activity." The newspaper wrote the article based on witness reports from the Sherman family. At this point, Robert Bigelow, a real estate millionaire with a passion for ufology, got interested in the ranch. Bigelow bought the ranch from the Shermans for $200,000 in September of 1996. Former owner Terry Sherman was then employed by Bigelow to help with research on the ranch. The Deseret News reported Bigelow bought the ranch for research. Bigelow founded the National Institute for Discovery of Science, in short NIDS, to perform high-quality research using a standard scientific approach. Bigelow used his own money for NIDS and assembled a team of prominent scientists with backgrounds in the government, army, and science to study the phenomena. Members of NIDS were Colm, Kelleher, a biochemist and paranormal researcher, Puthoff, a scientist who researched psychic powers like remote viewing for the CIA's Stargate-Project in order to create psychic spies, John Alexander, a former Army intelligence officer for paranormal warfare, and Jacques Vallee, author and UFO researcher who thinks UFOs are interdimensional. In 1997, the NIDS-team reported to the Deseret News that after 1 year of research, no UFOs or ETs had been spotted on the ranch. No paranormal activity had occurred. Alexander was quoted, "There has not been anything of significance. We don't have anything to work with." January 12, 1997, Jacques Vallee wrote in his journal Forbidden Science 4 that NIDS staffers told him, "Expectations of frequent sightings of UFOs at the Utah ranch have not materialized. What are we supposed to work on?" May 3, 1997, Vallee wrote, "It must be noted that no UFO is seen at the ranch, in contrast with earlier claims." January 11, 1998, Vallee wrote, "The Utah ranch is quiet with no new incidents. There hasn't been a single new case of a physical UFO here." Even in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Robert Bigelow told the newspaper he hasn't seen anything yet, and joked about UFOs hiding when he arrives at the ranch. After years of research that didn't lead to anything, NIDS was shut down in 2004, because nothing happened, Bigelow wrote, in a statement on October 15th of that year. So up to this point, other than the article in the Deseret newspaper in 1996, there were no reports of any UFO sightings or paranormal activity at Skinwalker Ranch. I should mention that the article writes, "Utah family says," so this implies the newspaper's key source is witness statement obtained from members of the Sherman family. So other than this one article in 1996, there's been no evidence of anything happening at all at Skinwalker Ranch. From 1933 all the way up to 2004 when the NIDS program was canceled, there is no evidence at all that anything happened at Skinwalker Ranch. However, 1 year later, in 2005, all of a sudden the book Hunt for the Skinwalker hit the shelves. The book was written by former NIDS director Colm Kelleher and UFO investigative journalist George Knapp. They claim the book portrays the true story of what they found on Skinwalker Ranch, and it's wild. According to the book, on Skinwalker Ranch there are monsters, Bigfoot-like creatures, a UFO that landed on the ranch, poltergeist-type events, ghostly voices, hairy humanoid creatures, aliens, portals opening in the sky which creatures crawled out of, ape-like creatures, reptilian creatures, beast creatures, and a huge wolf that was shot 4 times but didn't die. According to the book, the NIDS-team obtained physical evidence to support the claims. However, in the entire book, 0 evidence is presented. In 2020, author George Knapp was asked about evidence by Joe Rogan. This is what he said.
Because they weren't there with cameras.
Is there any evidence? So, well, all this, we're saying those cattle mutilations, I guess that's some evidence, but that's only evidence of cows, and we can mutilate cows. What about all this other stuff?
Like for the first 20 months when the rancher is there, they don't have any evidence because he's not a paranormal investigator. They're not taking photos or something, so they don't have any evidence of that except for what the rancher told them. Bigelow puts up cameras all over the property. Focused here where some activity had happened before, the thing moves over here. You move the cameras and focus there, it goes away. Well, whatever it was invisible. Well, they call in the NIDS guys. They bring in trackers. There are no tracks. There's no human tracks, no vehicle tracks, no animal tracks. This thing didn't want to be caught. It wanted to demonstrate it that it was there, but it didn't want to have evidence.
Again, is there any evidence?
No, not really.
So Joe Rogan asks, is there any evidence? And George Knapp replies with, no, not really.
If you're looking for physical evidence and solid proof, they don't have it.
They're looking for physical proof, and they don't have it. So the book says there is evidence, but then in an interview, the author says there's none. The majority of the book Hunt for the Skinwalker allegedly comes from Terry Sherman's experiences as a witness. In 2010, a book got published by Frank Salisbury called The Utah UFO Display. In his book, Salisbury interviewed both the Myers family and the Sherman family. What's crazy is that Terry Sherman told Salisbury he didn't know anything about Hunt for the Skinwalker, which allegedly shares his family's experiences, until the book was published. Terry Sherman had never met George Knapp, and he says he shares Gareth Myers' version of the history of the ranch. Gareth Myers stated, "There is absolutely nothing going on at the ranch." The New York Post tried to contact the authors of Hunt for the Skinwalker, but both George Knapp and Colm Kelleher didn't respond. Without providing any evidence whatsoever, Hunt for the Skinwalker was a hit and hyped the UFO community. In 2007, senior official scientist of the Defense Intelligence Agency at the Pentagon, James Lacatski, read the book and was fascinated by it. He contacted Bigelow, and together they visited the ranch. When Lacatski was at the ranch, he had a spectral encounter. A solid shape started to form in mid-air, floating inside the kitchen. Robert Bigelow, who was also present, did not see this shape. Bigelow allegedly contacted Senator Harry Reid about the fact Pentagon official Lacatski was interested in the ranch. We should note here that Bigelow is a longtime financial endorser of Senator Harry Reid, and not surprisingly, Senator Reid agreed to meet Lacatski. During the meeting, Senator Reid was convinced Lacatski was onto something, and they should investigate the UFO phenomena. James Lacatski then wrote the objectives of a new Pentagon program called the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Applications Program, in short, AWSAP. Lacatski doesn't mention anything about UFOs, Skinwalker Ranch, or paranormal investigation in the objectives of AWSAP. Because of this, AWSAP appeared as a normal aerospace tech program. We can now ask ourselves if Lacatski intentionally made it appear this way to deceive the Senate and acquire funds under false circumstances. Harry Reid acquired $22 million from the Senate for AWSAP. And now it gets interesting, because Robert Bigelow creates a company called Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, or in short, BAS. And guess who gets the $22 million? Exactly. AWSAP gave $22 million to BAS to study the Skinwalker Ranch. The same ranch, which has been studied by the same guy, Robert Bigelow, for years and didn't find anything. And to make things even crazier, BAS employees were, I kid you not, Robert Bigelow, Hall Puthoff, and Colm Kelleher, who also were part of the NIDS program. NIDS, that program that didn't find any evidence after years of research. After years of studying the ranch, BAS again didn't find anything. In 2012, the AWSAP program was canceled and BAS didn't receive any more funds. The Pentagon stated there was a lack of real progress and the project was of limited value. However, years later, in 2021, another book gets published called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. The authors of the book were James Lacatski, Colm Kelleher, and George Knapp. The book contains a lot of the same information that was written in Hunt for the Skinwalker, the book that was also written by Kelleher and Knapp and didn't provide any evidence, but this time their new book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, gets much spookier. According to skinwalkers at the Pentagon, visitors of the ranch could now pick up hitchhiking entities. This so-called hitchhiker effect makes ranch entities follow visitors to their homes like poltergeists. Again, the authors make the weirdest claims, and again, there's no evidence presented whatsoever. The only supposed evidence the book provides are references to Baz reports. No photos or data are presented, and again, the authors didn't want to provide the New York Post with any answers to their questions regarding a lack of evidence. So the NIDS program shut down because it didn't find anything, and the OSAP or BAS program was shut down because it didn't find anything. However, both times, the same authors wrote a very similar book stating the craziest claims, and both times, no evidence was provided. However, both books did hype the UFO community, and apparently people want to believe so badly that evidence isn't required. I'd like to ask you a question. If a UFO landed on your ranch, portals open in the sky from which creatures appear, the most freaky paranormal stuff happens, stuff science can't explain, which is so extremely important to humanity, what would you do with the ranch? Well, in 2016, when clearly not in need of funds, Robert Bigelow sold this extremely special place to another millionaire called Brandon Fugal. And what should give you the biggest clue of all is in 2018, the term Skinwalker Ranch was trademarked. Now, the History Channel pays Fugal a lot of money to film seasons of their new TV show in which they investigate the ranch, hyping everything, but in 3 seasons, they haven't provided us with any evidence whatsoever. In 2022, New York Post's basement office interviewed former security guards of the ranch, Chris Bartell and Mark Zacote. They said Bigelow did not like to be told nothing happened, and the bottom line was, tell the boss what he wants to hear. We're just here to collect a paycheck. They probably didn't want the fascinated billionaire to stop researching the ranch. As the employees, they'd then lose their day jobs. They also told the New York Post, we were faxing fake reports to Bigelow, making up spooky stories, and whatever happened was clearly explainable and not paranormal. On top of that, the University of Las Vegas told the New York Post it was sent samples taken from the ranch by Kelleher. A science professor who did the analysis said, Kelleher sent us liquids to analyze in search of alien life, but it was just muddy water. It was not much scientific. As much as I want to believe, it's hard to ignore the facts. Both the NIDS and OSAP program were shut down because no evidence was found. Bigelow and Vallee wrote statements no evidence was obtained. 2 books with crazy claims were published without providing any evidence. Former ranch owners, the Myers, and the Shermans both said in an interview, nothing ever happened. The Pentagon said the OSAP program was of limited value. Ex-security guards claimed to say whatever Bigelow wanted to hear, so they could keep collecting their paycheck. A university professor who analyzed supposedly alien samples said it was just muddy water. Bigelow sold the most interesting place in the world when he was clearly not in need of funds. The term Skinwalker Ranch was trademarked. And last but not least, the History Channel now creates multiple season series that capitalize on the hype. I think at this point, you can draw your own conclusions. If you made it this far, then I want to thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up, as that helps us a ton. I want to credit the New York Post for their research, as they were a major inspiration for this video. You can check their videos for a deeper dive into the subject. They're linked in the description.